Today is Saturday, June 2nd, 2012, and this is the George Maher Show.
I can hear you, the rest of the world hears you, and the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Osama bin Laden is just one person.
Mr. One bin Laden dead.
There's an old poster out west, as I recall, that said, "Wanted, dead or alive."
Target secure.
Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of Al-Qaeda.
On this afternoon's broadcast, New York Times and Wall Street Journal best-selling author Eric Blehm, fresh from a Memorial Day special on Fox News with Mike Huckabee. Eric will be joining George to talk about his latest book, Fearless. You will hear the inside story about SEAL Team 6. Eric Blehm is a journalist who is no stranger to special ops. Stand by. This will be an hour you will not want to miss. On your smartphone, enter GeorgeMaherShow.com. Opinions expressed are those of George and his guest and do not reflect those of WTTB, its management, or sponsors. Now let's get the show rolling. Ballard, the audio engineer, is going to make the mics hot. Veronica is our technical editor. Wesley Prieston is George's videographer. And Neil's in the bullpen ready to make things happen. And I'm Mel, your announcer. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here's your host, George Maher.
And a good afternoon to you, and welcome to the George Maher Show this Saturday, the 2nd of June, 2002. Hey, glad you're joining us today, and along with us today, we're going to be speaking with Eric Blehm. Eric is the author of the new book, Fearless, The Undaunted Courage and Ultimate Sacrifice of Navy SEAL Team 6 operator Adam Brown. And ladies and gentlemen, you're going to want to sit through this one. This story is just beyond belief. It's a story of not only the dedication of the Navy SEALs, SEAL Team 6 in particular, but it's a story of courage. It's a story of overcoming adversity. It's just one hell of a story. So I hope you'll stick with us throughout this hour. And on the phone joining me today from California is none other than Eric Blehm. Good afternoon, Eric, and welcome to the George Maher Show.
George, thanks for having me, and that beautiful intro just gave me chills hearing some of those old newscasts.
Yes. Yeah, those were memorable moments. And you're having some memorable moments, I might add. Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Blehm's new book, Fearless, The Undaunted Courage and Ultimate Sacrifice of Navy SEAL Team 6 operator Adam Brown, was just released a few days back. And already, Eric, I see as of yesterday, Friday, June the 1st, the book has catapulted up on the New York Times bestseller list under ebook nonfiction. You're up at number 10 already in the matter of a few days, and the hardcover editions available in fine bookstores everywhere and also on the web, and we'll give you information on that a little later on in the program. That has already moved up to number 17, so a big congratulations to you, Eric.
Thank you very much. It really, the story and Adam Brown, it's really all him and what his life represents, and that the fact that his teammates from SEAL Team 6, as well as his family and closest friends, opened up to and wanted his story told.
But this is also an indication of the type of journalist and author you are, because back in 1999, I believe it was, Eric, you became the first journalist to actually accompany and keep pace with an elite Army Ranger unit out on a training mission. And because of that, because of your access to special ops community and reporting, you really enabled what a lot of people take for granted today, which is American journalists who are embedded with some of these units. Is that not correct?
Yeah, back in '99, I was invited. There was the military was kind of toying with the idea of introducing and letting journalists join up with some of these more elite units. That's when the term embedded media was really kind of coming into vogue.
Yes. Before
9/11. And I would say, lucky enough, I guess you could put it, to go and let the Rangers beat me into the ground for about a 40-hour mission where it was just pouring down rain in a rainforested area. I wore all their equipment, and over that course of 40 hours, I think we slept about 2.5 hours and covered like 15 miles through this jungle-like rainforest area on the Oregon coast to take out a target that was set for, again, training purposes. But I got to tell you, those guys, the Rangers, are amazing. They carry some of the heaviest loads, and I tried to keep up with them. I did, but by the end of it, I will say that my body was beaten down.
Yeah, to say the least, that's brutal. That coastline up there, as well as all that gear, carrying 60, 70 pounds, etc. But actually, I think you earned it because, ladies and gentlemen, Eric Blehm did win the National Outdoor Book Award back in 2006 for a book by the title of The Last Season, which is actually it was an account of a disappearance of a really legendary National Park Service ranger. I believe it was Randy Morganson. And
yep.
then in 2009, you turned around and let's see, The Last Season, was that 2009 or that was maybe?
That was yeah. You're getting me mixed up myself. I think that it's 2006, and then 2009 was The Only Thing Worth Dying For, which is about a Special Forces A team of Green Berets, the first team to go into southern Afghanistan right after 9/11. And these were 11 guys, an ODA 574, who, in the course of 4 weeks, they were with Hamid Karzai back before anybody knew who he was.
Right.
And he, during the course of their involvement with him and kind of helping to build his militia in the South to kind of help the Pashtun rise up against the Taliban in the South, they helped and instigated what many consider the deciding factors in what had the Taliban surrender. During the course of that 4 weeks, however, of the 11 guys on this team, every single one of them was either wounded or killed.
Right.
And so this was a story that told from the perspective of those guys, and it's the only story that really documented the first very early missions into Afghanistan after 9/11 in the South.
And that was The Only Thing Worth Dying For. And, that was also hailed by Charlie Wilson, who wrote, Charlie Wilson was a former congressman, of course, but he wrote Charlie Wilson's War and rated your book there as a must-read among any of the current books, at that time on Afghanistan. So, where I was going with all this, it doesn't come as any surprise to me or the listeners that you would be the obvious choice of people to make inroads into an embedded situation based on what you turned out previous. But how did I got a couple of questions for you, if I may. I want to fire away. Tell us, what initially, how did you get a hold of this story about Adam Brown? Because, we had Marcus Luttrell was on a couple of weeks back, and of course, most people know Marcus, and it's well publicized. But up until recently, I had never heard the name Adam Brown mentioned. So, where did you happen to come up with this story? What initially brought you into this story?
I will say first of all that the men for all the SEALs, all of our armed forces, are a gift. SEAL Team 6 is an exceptional gift to our nation, and this story really was a gift to me. Because of my past work, a gentleman by the name of Rick Stewart, who is the executive producer and host of the NRA, puts out a website and a television, kind of online television station called Life of Duty, and he did a documentary on Adam Brown because he had met him through some kind of building up, asking questions about what people might want for this Life of Duty network that the NRA was creating. Basically, they honor men and women who serve in uniform, civilian, whatever, and they do little mini documentaries on that they call Patriot Profiles. So he had done a little story on him and was friends with the Brown family, and throughout his contact, he found out that they wanted Adam's story told. Now, by chance, he had also previously done a story, a Patriot Profile, on the entire team that I wrote my book, The Only Thing Worth Dying For, about. And after speaking with those guys and the family members of the men on that team who did not come home, who were killed on that mission, he basically had a big thumbs up that I was going to tell a story and I was going to do it without inserting myself politically. I wasn't going to, I was going to stick to the recorded dialogue. I wasn't going to dramatize anything. I was going to tell it like it happened. And he liked that, and he told the Browns that, introduced us, and because of that, I was introduced just a few days before the Osama bin Laden kill mission in Afghanistan. And that was before, at that point, they said they wanted me to write his story, and after seeing this video, I immediately said I would love to tell this story. And after learning about who Adam was, I said right away, I think we should call this book Fearless. And that's amazing that happened, and that title stuck all the way through all the different whatever focus groups and meetings through the publishing process and whatnot, and meeting with his teammates, because when I told them the idea of the title, his teammates from SEAL Team 6, they said, search no further. There is no better single word that describes Adam Brown.
So that title was unanimous then?
That was unanimous from the beginning. And that's really how it came about. That's how I came to the story. It was kind of like I didn't search for anything. All of my stories seemed to come about from the past stories, from recommendations and referrals or whatever. They just kind of have come to me, and I just feel so fortunate to have got a hold of it. Because, Adam Brown, he is the most unique, courageous, inspiring, uplifting stories that you can imagine. I mean, well, you've read the book,
yes,
and so you know what he went through and what he overcame. And I will just say to your listeners, there are people out there that are fighting for our freedoms that stop at nothing to keep pushing, to keep doing that because they feel that sense of duty. And Adam Brown just overcame so much to be able to do that for us, and he paid the ultimate sacrifice. And it's a unique story in that what he rose up from. I think some of the greatest heroes are the ones who come from a dark place, and Adam did. He came from rock bottom.
I have,
rose up.
I can relate so much to this. In another part of my life, I work with alcoholics and drug addicts, and I've got, as many of my local listeners know, I've got a bit of a sordid past myself. And when I read this, this isn't your typical, not that there's a typical book on the topic of SEALs or Marines or Green Berets. They're all very good stories. But, on the other hand, this goes so in-depth. Fearless goes in to Adam Brown, and I was spellbound. I got to tell you, Eric, I was just spellbound. I really could not put the book down. Couldn't put it down, and I've blown through the book in about 2 days, less than 2 days ago.
That's amazing.
It just grabs your attention, and you can't let it go. And it's inspiring, and, I'm telling myself, this guy's never going to cut it. I couldn't connect the dots. This guy, how does he get from point A during the dark days, right, up to what he ultimately achieved? So let me do this with respect to this. Could you tell us a little bit about Adam's childhood? And he was full of daredevil antics. What prepared him for a career as a SEAL?
Well, he grew up, as some of his buddies put it, in the proving grounds of Arkansas, Hot Springs, Arkansas. Kind of a lake town where he was this fearless kid who was well known for just, always going full throttle. Even when he was a little kid, when he was the smallest kid on the Pee Wee football team, his coach would have the drills. He had a drill called Blood Alley.
Right.
And he would basically pit a big guy, a couple of guys against each other in an alley, and they would basically fire off at each other and try and bowl each other out of the way to get to the other end of this alley. And Adam would always be sitting there raising his hands no matter how big the guy that the coach pulled out he was going to be up against. And finally, ultimately, the coach let him do it, and he should start to just prove himself among his teammates because he would not back down from anybody. He was a little guy, and he came home after practice one day, and he had been telling his mom and dad, the coach won't let me play. He won't play me. He thinks I'm too little. And they kept saying, well, just keep doing your thing. They'll recognize you for what you are, and you keep pushing. And ultimately, one day he came home just beaming, and he said, you know what the team called me today? You know what they called me? And they said, what'd they call you? And he said, psycho. Because he would not quit. And that just let her on. But what's neat about that is that here's this kid. You get kids that are tough and that are, you kind of almost envision they're going to be these tough kids. Maybe, I don't know. I can't even think of maybe Eddie Haskell type Leave It to Beaver kid who's kind of not so nice. He's tough, but he's not so nice. Adam Brown was the opposite. He was, kind of a little an angel. His parents taught him, led by example. He would open doors for people, men and women alike. He would say sir and madam and please and thank you. When there was in middle school, there was a kid with Down syndrome that got picked on by some kids getting off the bus. And Adam was, littler than these guys who were kind of just, being mean. And
dancing with the wallflowers at the prom and whatnot.
Dancing with, that kind of stuff. And he stood up for these guys against these guys that were picking on this kid with Down syndrome, and that was just kind of who Adam was. He had a great heart, a heart of gold. One of his buddies told me, and I'm telling you, some people would read some of the parts in the book and they might think, come on, this guy seems almost perfect. But I'm telling you, I interviewed dozens of people, and people were honest. Obviously, we tell the dirt of this story as well. We're not trying to gloss over, and it's not all cherries. We
no, not
tell
at all.
About him being a crack addict.
Right.
But I could not find anybody who would find a situation where he was not just a quintessential nice guy who cared about others. But he said at a young age, as a teenager, he knew what it meant to be nice to people at a young age when most kids are kind of heartless and don't really think about that.
Self-centered, etc. Yeah.
So, from there he just continued. He was this daredevil. He was the one who would, they'd have a belly flop contest at the pool with his football team, and he'd jump in. Everybody would do it, and he'd end up doing 5 of them. But he wouldn't do them off the regular board. He'd go ahead and climb to the top. So he would do 5 belly flops off the high board at the pool. Nobody would touch him. They would not touch it. They would not even attempt it. And so he just had this courageous look. Even at age 2, he jumped off a 12-foot deck. Age 2, his mom thought he was dead. Ran over, gave him a big old swat, and said, "Don't you ever do that again." And 2 days later, he did it again. They would say that when Adam was missing, when he was a little kid, the first place they'd look was up. Because he would climb all over the place.
Jumping off of buildings into trees as opposed
into
to...
trees, yeah.
Out of trees and onto the ground.
Yeah, just an amazing, just the antics. They don't stop. And, and when you write a book, you only have a certain amount of pages. And, some of the best stories made it into the book, but they continue beyond those pages. I mean, it's just story after story. And then ultimately he, maybe it was that daredevil attitude that he had, and maybe it was also, that heart he had. He ended up, falling in love with the wrong girl in the wrong crowd and tried crack cocaine one night.
Well, let's, Eric, if we may, before we transition into, let's call it the dark side here.
Yeah, sure.
Let's take a short break. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go away. Very intriguing, informative interview with Eric Blehm, the author of Fearless, The Undaunted Courage and Ultimate Sacrifice of Navy SEAL Team 6 operator Adam Brown. You're going to love this, so make sure you stay tuned. We're going to be right back. Hey, and a good afternoon to you once again, and thanks for listening this Saturday afternoon to The George Maher Show right here on News Radio 1490 WTTB, and also on the web at georgemahershow.com, georgemahershow.com, georgemahershow.com. Hey, if you're just rejoining us, or if you're joining us, we've been on the phone with none other than Eric Blehm. Eric is the author of Fearless, The Undaunted Courage and Ultimate Sacrifice of Navy SEAL Team 6 operator Adam Brown. And good afternoon to you once again, Eric, or should I say good morning? You're still morning out on the West Coast.
We're on the verge of morning and afternoon, so we're good.
Good. And how's your weather doing out there today?
We're kind of coastal, so we got a little bit of that gray, that June gloom going on, but it's starting to clear up, and it's shaping up to be a nice day.
Okay, sounds like the East Coast today. We're sitting over here on the Atlantic side of things, a little gray, a lot of rain overnight, but
there you go.
Beautiful day nonetheless, and it's a great day to be on the line with you. And once again, I want to compliment or congratulate Eric for his new book, Fearless. It just appeared yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, on New York Times bestseller list. It's number 10 on the ebook nonfiction, came in number 17 on the hardcover, and 17 ain't a bad number considering that the book was just released this week. Is that correct, Eric?
Yeah, we're really happy with that. Publishers Weekly, which is kind of a broader scale across the country to what they follow, and it was number 15. Sweet. And it was number 14 for the combined New York Times list for ebook and hardcover combined together. So we're really, really happy, and we're so the family and myself, we're just really happy that Adam's story is getting out there.
Well, we're happy you got the story out, and we're happy for your success with this book. Thank you. May it continue in week number 2. Hey, yes. And we have been talking once again with Eric. We're speaking of his new book, Fearless, and we're discussing in particular the subject of the book, Adam Brown. And before we took a break, we were talking about events leading up to Adam and his career for SEAL Team 6. But we're also getting into the dark side a little bit, Eric. And, Adam, in reading the book, Adam kind of lost his way after graduating from high school. And then he got involved in some kind of serious issues, to say the least, that I would have thought would have prevented him from even entering the military. How was he able to rise up above all that and dedicate himself to this very, very rigorous SEAL qualifying process?
Well, as I mentioned before, for any of your new listeners, Adam ultimately tried crack cocaine, and one night with the wrong crowd in college age, and he became addicted of the lifelong battle, the lifelong war against that drug that is so almost impossible to overcome. And he had felonies. He became a criminal. To support his habit, he stole from his family, from his friends. He ultimately ended up in jail. And I will say, if Adam Brown was sitting here right beside me, he would say it was his faith that got him through in jail. He started to read the Bible, and he accepted the Lord into his heart, and that, along with his love of family, his love of God, love of country, is what helped him to rise above that dark side. But it was not a quick and easy turnaround. I mean, he spent a year in a very disciplined drug rehab program.
The Teen Challenge program, yeah.
Teen Challenge, and then ultimately, you're right. How do you get to that point? How do you even join the Navy? Well, it's a classic situation and a classic example of how your reputation will precede you. And his character that we talked about earlier, being this great, all-American, good kid, was remembered by the father of a buddy of his, who, by chance, ended up being the Commodore, the lead recruiter, highest-ranking recruiter for the Navy in that whole half of the country of where he lived. And this father of Jeff Bushman, his name's Roger Bushman, he was a captain at the time, remembered Adam as this kid who just would not lie to his parents. His own son would sneak out at a slumber party, and Adam would still be in bed, and he wouldn't get busted because his own son would go out and with some other buddies and crashed a girl's slumber party, and Adam was still in the bed when they all got busted, and he asked him, "Why didn't you go, Adam?" He said, "Well, my parents told me not to leave the house without permission, sir."
I remember that line in the book, a great line.
Yeah, and so when Roger Bushman got a call from this recruiter years later saying, "Sir, there's a kid that wants to join the Navy here. He says that he knows you and that you might vouch for him. I mean, this kid has a laundry list of felonies. He's a drug addict. He doesn't even know if crack cocaine is still in his system. He's telling me it's done. It's in his past. What should I do?" And he told this recruiter, "Treat him like he's my own son." And he said, "Give him a chance. I will vouch for him. I will put my career on the line." And so Captain Roger Bushman at the time did that, gave him a second chance. And years later, when Adam was ultimately killed in combat, he actually said, "Bringing Adam Brown into the Navy was the best thing I ever did in my entire 30-plus year career." He was so proud of Adam because he really did become a legend among the SEALs.
That he did, and thank God for that captain having faith in Adam. Adam owes a lot of his success also to, love of his wife, Kelly, who great lady in her own right. And she had real strong beliefs in Adam as well. Knew that he could be what he could be. And can you tell us a little bit about, their relationship and what you learned about Adam through your interviews with his wife, Kelly?
I sat down with Kelly Brown. Kelly Brown is a warrior in her own right. She, like many of these SEAL wives and just the military wives and families, she stuck by Adam's side. First of all, when she first met him, she didn't know he had a drug addiction past, and that came out shortly after because Adam began to relapse. And so Kelly would, hunt Adam down when he was strung out in crack houses and kept on saying, you're so much better than this. This is a drug. And even though even Adam's own parents at one point said, "Kelly, leave. Don't let him drag you down," she just felt in her heart that she was there to see Adam through. She just believed in him, and that gave him the strength what gave him the strength to just keep pushing. So she's an amazing woman, and she, ultimately an amazing mother who, when Adam was deployed, anywhere from 8 to 9 months of every year for, a decade or more, kept the house and the kids kept him on a schedule, and from other wives in the SEAL arena said that she really was just like Adam, an example, someone they strove to be like. Absolutely. Because she was so strong. So yeah, she did everything, everything from taking care of the kids to when Adam started having these horrendous injuries. We haven't gotten to that point yet, but Adam, what makes it so amazing that he even made it to the level of SEAL Team 6. So first imagine a crack addict even making the Navy. Then imagine a crack addict making it through BUD/S, training to become a SEAL. Now, to become a SEAL, you're the top 10% of at least, maybe 5% of all of the warriors in our nation. And then all of a sudden you want to make it to SEAL Team 6, and that's like the top 1% of that top 10%. And
there's more after that, too. We're going to even take it higher than that after a while.
Yeah, and so Adam did that after having had his eye shot out in a training accident. He had his fingers cut off and severed in Afghanistan when he was in a combat zone, and he taught himself to shoot left-handed and to just navigate all of the stringent, so difficult to pass qualifications for SEAL Team 6 after that. I mean, to put it in terms that people who don't shoot might understand, let's say our baseball player and the Super Bowl, or I'm sorry, there's my sports fan coming out.
There you go.
The World Series is coming up, and you were told, well, in 6 months it's a World Series. It's the most important game you're ever going to play. And you know what? You better teach yourself how to bat left-handed, throw left-handed. You better do everything perfectly. You're going to do it while people are shooting at you, while they're yelling at you, while there's smoke, while there's confusion. You're going to do it absolutely perfect, or you are not on the team. That's what Adam did, only he did it in terms of the warrior qualifications needed for SEAL Team 6. He did it by retraining himself to think left when his entire life he'd reacted and thought right.
Right side of the brain, yeah. And unlike baseball, unlike the World Series, you only got one shot at it. If you mess up anywhere through the training, ladies and gentlemen, you're out of the program. You're going to end up back, well, in his case, he'd have gone back to a SEAL team, which ain't a bad thing at all. But if you're working just to become a SEAL and you don't cut it, you're on a ship, and that's it. Don't look for a second chance on it, if I'm correct.
Yeah, and Adam refused. I mean, he had opportunities. With each one of these injuries, he was completely eligible for a very, very honorable, retirement with medical disability for the rest of his life. And he never, ever even considered it. It was just for him, when he hurt himself with these horrific injuries, it wasn't like, how am I going to get by? How am I going to keep going? He would look, okay, what's next? What is the next challenge that I can overcome? That for him at first was sniper school, Naval Special Warfare Sniper School, one of those difficult schools in the military. He thinks, I'm going to try that out just so I can get used to shooting left-handed. He passed that, and then that was kind of his little test to see if he had what he thought it would take for SEAL Team 6. And again, he did it. It's unprecedented what he did. You've seen lots of sports come back, stories. This is just it's not me speaking, it's his buddies, his fellow SEALs. They say it is phenomenal. It's Jedi-like. It's just unprecedented. It has never happened. No one's ever made it through those qualifications without your dominant eye and teaching yourself to shoot with your non-dominant hand.
Yeah, I mean, just the physical, the rigors, the demands made upon your attention, kicking in a door, being the first guy in, you need both eyes and peripheral vision for that, and he certainly didn't have that. And that whole story with the loss of the eye and then the hands was just over the top. I'm like, oh my God, what do I have to complain about in my trivial little life?
Exactly. And you were talking, what made me lead to this was his wife, Kelly. Through all this, she was the one that was, when his eye was ultimately removed through evisceration, basically your eye scooped out, she was the one that was handling these very, very gnarly injuries, debriding the tissue on the hands with exposed nerves when they reattached his fingers, putting eye drops into the cavern of where his eye was, the ocular cavity. She did these things that an RN, a registered nurse, would do, and she did this at the same time, while having young children, keeping everything in line, yet every day doing what needed to be done at the level of a registered nurse at home. And knowing that he's doing this to go back and put himself in harm's way again. You know
what I really enjoyed, that interplay between both Adam and Kelly. where he'd return from a tour. He'd be back stateside. He'd get home and he'd tell his wife, he says, "Honey, you got the most difficult job. Mine's easy." You know,
Exactly.
for all of her, because she is and was a trooper for sure. I mean, you did a great job of projecting her as a hero, also, which she is.
This is a one reviewer, and I just was very, very humbled by this one comment where a reviewer said that this is probably the first book on SEALs he's ever read that will be enjoyed by the women and the men out there equally, because it really is kind of this interplay between the family life, who these guys are as warriors, and you get that very clearly as these lethal warriors, but then you also get the idea of what they do at home and what their families are up against. And that's really what I wanted to do. You know, I wanted to kind of honor that whole community through the story of Adam Brown, because no one has ever gotten the inside story of who are these guys on SEAL Team 6. We've heard about the Osama bin Laden mission. There's a couple books out there on SEAL Team 6. And some people just kind of put all the SEALs into the same batch. You're a SEAL? Oh, you're that team that got Osama bin Laden. And I'm not saying this to downplay what the other teams do, the other SEAL teams, but even those SEALs will tell you SEAL Team 6 is in a league by itself.
It's the next level up. It's the next one up.
It is. It's the next one up.
Hey, before we get into the book any further, let's take a real short break. I'm having such a great time. I'm not watching the clock today, Eric. So
I'm just glancing at myself.
Ladies and gentlemen, don't go away, because when we get back, we're going to continue to talk with Eric Blehm, who is the author of Fearless. So stand by. We're going to be right back at you. Hey, and a good afternoon once again, and thank you for tuning in to The George Maher Show. And on the phone with me today from the west coast of the United States of America, Mr. Eric Blehm, author of Fearless. And once again, good afternoon to you, Eric.
Thanks again for having me.
Oh, thank you. Anytime. And I hope we can do a follow-up at some later date. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining or rejoining, we have been speaking with Eric about his new book, New York Times bestseller as of yesterday. The title of the book is Fearless, available at fine bookstores everywhere and also online. And we'll give you some information how to do that a little bit later on. But we're getting short on time, and we still got a lot to cover, because this story is just absolutely amazing. It's tantalizing to the mind. Hey, Eric, I got to ask you, what kind of a reputation did Adam have during his BUDS training? Which, for the listeners, that's a basic underwater demolition / SEALs training, BUDS training. What kind of rep did Adam have in the initial stages?
Well, you know, the instructors there say that, you know, your reputation here will define you, and it will follow you to the teams. And sure enough, Adam started out, you know, he was a guy, again, not this grand physical specimen, you know, of a chiseled, you know, body, and he was just
unlike
tall,
you
lanky,
and me. Unlike you and me.
He was a tall, lanky guy. I have a feeling I might have a little bit more around the midsection than he had, but he is just, you know, you look at him, and he also had this Arkansas twang, you know, Southern drawl that just made him sound real friendly. And one of his buddies even said, you know, he seemed too nice to be tough. But soon thereafter, he was this guy who people realized he would put his reputation even above his own physical body. There was one situation where he had to run down a hill with the whole group of SEALs who were in his class, and they said, run down this hill out on San Clemente Island. It was this rock-strewn, cliffy hill, and touch a landmark, and then get back to the top. And they say, pays to be a winner. And that is essentially their little mantra there at BUDS training. You know, if you can be first or one of the teams that wins in one of their little challenges, then they get to rest or they get a little extra something. So Adam, while everybody else is side-slipping down or very gingerly making their way down this rocky face, because they know if they get injured, they're out of the school. They'll get rolled. And Adam takes off running down this, what someone described to me as 45-degree cliff-like slope, tumbles, crushing his body as he's tumbling down this hill, ends up on his feet, touches the landmark, and he's back to the top before most of the people have picked their way down to the bottom. Yeah, that was incredible. And that's just one example to show where Adam had that no-stop attitude. One of his buddies, teammates, said he was like an engine that was bored out, you know, at full throttle. There was no regulator. He was always in fifth gear.
Yeah, what an energetic guy, to say the least. Most of his teammates and commanders also described him as the best of the best, the top 1% of the naval special warfare community. How did Adam's bravery actually stand out, among his fellow SEALs? And
they just knew Adam was the type of guy who, again, he was selfless. He would always put himself above other. I mean, not above in a bad way, in a good way. He would stand up. He would take on the volunteer for the toughest jobs. If there was something dangerous, he would be the first to say, "I got it." And that led right to this, his final mission in Afghanistan, when he was on this very dangerous mission. What his command, and I got to tell you, if SEAL Team 6 is saying it's an audacious mission, it is a horrendously audacious mission. His final mission on March 17, 2010, was described to me by every single SEAL from that command that it was far more dangerous and difficult than the Osama bin Laden mission in Pakistan, where they crossed over border. This was just an area that was completely surrounded by enemy, in an area never before visited by coalition troops, and they had to hike in a great distance just to assault a compound where this Taliban leader had been found. And this was a guy who had blood on his hands, was brazenly bragging about all the American and coalition forces he was killing with his little cell of insurgents. And, Adam's team went in to get him because they knew, they had some intelligence that said that this guy was going to strike it again, and they were going in to be the protector, to kind of go into where the conventional forces could not get to these guys. And so that's when they would call in somebody like SEAL Team 6. And I will just say, it was described to me, it wasn't like they were going to kick the hornet's nest. They were actually infiltrating inside of a hornet's nest. And then they sneak past all these sleeping hornets, then they kick the leader in the head, knowing full well that all the hornets are going to wake up, they're going to be surrounded, and they still got to get out of there.
Yeah, they got to get out before all the other bad guys show up, and that was a very, very, very deep insertion. I guess you said that was one of the deepest. That
top three in the entire war. In that, saying that it was the most difficult to get out of, all the way around. Now the actual compound they assaulted was not unlike really hundreds that they did, and that's another thing that I learned with this. First of all, there's nothing disclosed in the book that will endanger the lives of these guys in future operations. I had so many active duty operators from Naval Special Warfare Development Group, aka SEAL Team 6, read the manuscript so they would, and I told them, anything that might endanger your life or the success of future operations, you let me know. And so there's a few parts in the book that are a little bit ambiguous and vague when it comes down to their operational security
with
and the
purpose,
missions,
though, right?
But it's all with purpose, and you know what? I'm fine with that. That's not something I would like to have, but I would rather have that little tiny hole, or a little bit of like the reader saying, what's going on right here? Because at the end of the day, it's going to protect these guys, and you don't want to throw out something. Some people say that if there's a hole in a story, they like to fill it with BS.
Yeah.
I'd rather there be a hole. I'd rather there be a little tiny hole than to have that happen. And again, for this purpose, it's to protect these men and their allies who do the dirty work for the rest of us.
Hey, you know what? And I really appreciate the way you handled that in the book. I noticed that. That's one thing I'd noticed. It's like, okay, I know what's going on here because, quite honestly, I wasn't too happy when the president came out. And, I know you don't take a political stand, but I certainly do. And I didn't really care for the expose, the whole SEAL Team 6 and all that bit. But having said that, I personally don't think those guys should have ever been named. I don't mean individually. I mean SEAL Team 6 as a whole. And, you did a great job staying ambiguous in some places with good purpose, I might add, in my humble opinion. And also there's a number of photographs in the book. And, while Adam's face is prevalent in there, you don't see anybody else's face in there. I mean, sure, his wife Kelly, the kids and whatnot, but other SEAL Team 6 members, you don't have their pictures up there, and that's for good reason. There is a purpose behind that. That wasn't done for the heck of it, that's for sure. So thanks for that. I mean,
I appreciate it.
Man, your attention to detail in this is just overwhelming, because I read an awful lot of books, and man, you're right on with this stuff. Good stuff. Just the style, the way you handle it, and everything. I also wanted to I wanted to ask you, right after, not too long after you did all these face-to-face interviews with not only Adam's family, and his teammates, but like 7 of Adam's fellow SEAL members were killed just weeks after, I guess it was, just after you did the interview in that Chinook helicopter crash. What kind of impact did that have on you? I mean, wow.
It was probably the most. Well, it chokes me up even today because I met these guys. I met their families in some cases. Had meals with them, spent hours with them, anywhere from 2 to 6 hours one-on-one, and they were pouring their heart out, telling me about Adam's final mission. One guy telling me about last moments with his teammates, and just telling me what it means to be a SEAL and how proud they are of what they do. But they were doing it all to honor Adam because, again, once the family conveyed that they wanted the story told, and Adam himself. Let me just briefly tell everybody that one of Adam's final wishes on his Keiko form, what his last wishes are if he were killed in combat.
Right.
He said that he wanted his story, if it was helpful, to tell people that who he was before he became a SEAL, before he met his wife Kelly, before he met Jesus Christ, because he was a very deeply faithful man, a very strong Christian. Mm-hmm. And he said that, and I think that's the most fearless thing of all, because he was willing to let people know who he was back when he was this criminal, when he was this dirtbag. He could have gone out a hero and no one would have ever heard about that. But a lot of his teammates didn't even know that past about him. His closest friends, some of them didn't know. And he decided, hey, I want people to know that they can rise above their darkest hour. If you could be in that deep, dark hole, this drug almost killed him, and they can still crawl out of it and keep going. So I think that's fearless as far as Adam goes. And so fast forward, his team learned this, and they wanted to tell the story, and I interviewed all these guys, and one of them even told me, I want to talk to you sooner than later because we're about to deploy, and I could get killed on my next mission. I mean, that was on the tape, and so fast forward just about 5 weeks later, I'm coming back from a camping trip with my family. I will never forget it. We were driving kind of in kind of this farmland area in the Central Valley, coming back from Sequoia Kings Canyon National Park, another great American treasure.
Yes.
And my phone comes to life, cell phone coverage comes back, and I have these message after message after message. And I will never forget this American flag out in this field we're driving past as I'm listening to my voicemail and hearing name after name, Brian Bill, Keith Robinson, Kevin Houston, Matt Mason, Tom Ratzlaff, Chris Campbell, all these guys, all those pictures of those guys that were on all the, Newsweek and whatever, who were killed in that Chinook, I had interviewed them all just weeks before, and extensively, and it was just, my kids are playing in the back of the car, and I go back home and I need to write the book. I'm funeral of these guys with Kevin Houston in Virginia Beach. I went to a funeral. But his wife was another strong warrior wife, Mei-Ling Houston in Virginia Beach. I go to their house the night before. There's candles lit. There's 17 American flags, which was a number of SEALs from his command that were killed, and their teammates at EOD guys, Craig Vickers, Nick Knoll, amazing guys. She comes out to me. She says, Eric, she said, she's crying. She said, all of them, all those guys you met, because she was with me when I met them at a dinner, they're all gone. But then she said, you know what? There's a reason. There's a reason you were able to talk to all of them. And, you're going to tell Adam's story, but I know you're going to honor them as well. And so that's what this book does. The book is dedicated to all the men that were killed on August 6, 2011 in Wardak province on that Chinook. But they did it by telling selflessly and humbly about the guy they thought deserved a book from their command. And they did it just with open hearts. And at the end of the day, I realized as I listened to their interviews after they had been killed in combat that, man, they weren't only telling me about Adam Brown, they were defining themselves. They're all heroes, and even though you get their voices throughout this book in honoring their buddy Adam, I would never want to, and I know Kelly and Adam himself would never want to belittle what all those guys do.
Everybody's so selfless there, so selfless, yourself included. I mean, what a series of events, leading up to all this, and what you just described is just, Eric, you put it over the top, buddy.
I appreciate it very much. Well, that means a lot because I know, depends, everybody has an opinion. So far, people are saying the story is in some way changing their lives, and I know, Adam would hope that it would bring people that are in those dark places.
Yes.
He sought faith, and he would want to lead people in that direction, but he also would want anybody just to know that they can dig deep. They can find something. For Adam, it was faith. It was his religion. It was Christianity and Jesus. Mm-hmm. But he would be the cheerleader for anybody in a dark place. He was a guy who, when he saw a homeless man, an old homeless man on a park bench sleeping, he would go find an ATM, walk back, and tuck a $20 bill in his pocket while he's sleeping, and so his kids would see, and they think, well, what's he going to do with that money? And Adam's response would be, you know what? Any way you look at it, we're better off than him.
Absolutely. What a great lesson! What a great lesson for all of us. Unfortunately, we're running short on this hour, but
that's okay.
Eric, hey, where can folks learn more about you in the book? Because there's so much more to learn about you and the book.
I would urge everybody just to forget about my personal website, go straight to fearlessnavyseal.com, and there's a great little YouTube video trailer. You can see his family, home video of him. It's an amazing video. Watch it with the volume turned up.
Yep.
And go anywhere books are sold and help spread the word throughout America about this great hero, Adam Brown.
Okay, and you can also go to my website, and if you're watching right now, you're on our website, and all the information's right there for Eric's location, so go to georgemahershow.com, georgemahershow.com, georgemahershow.com. Direct portal over to Eric's page. Fearless Seal. What is it? I'm having a pregnant pause.
Fearlessnavyseal.com.
Fearlessnavyseal.com. It's right there. That's why we write it down, because George here can't remember. Hey, Eric, once again, thanks so much for coming on and spending this whole hour with us. It was great, and now folks know why we spent the whole hour with you. This is marvelous. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, George. And thank to everybody in your listenership who serves. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Hope to talk to you soon, Eric. Good luck with the book, and God bless you. And listeners, thanks again for joining us this week, and let's go out with one thought. I want to say, God bless each and every one of you. God bless America.